Hola, I'm Andrea Rivera de Vega, and this is Adelante, Pronto, a Milwaukee PBS podcast. In this segment, we're talking about the Birth to 3 program, which is a voluntary program for children ages birth to 36 months who are suspected of having developmental delays that may indicate the need for early intervention services. Today, Daisy Falcon shares with us her experiences and her family journey with the Birth 3 program and how instrumental it was in the development of her child. She also talks about how this opportunity opened a door to a world that became her new profession years later. Today, we're talking with Daisy Falcon, whose daughter receives services from Birth to 3 program. Daisy is a bilingual service coordinator at Penfield Children's Center. Hi, Daisy. Welcome, and thank you for being here with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Daisy, let's jump right into the questions. When and how did you first heard about the Birth to 3 program?
I first heard of the Birth to 3 program in 2013. My youngest daughter, Alexa, was 3 months old at the time. At her 3-month checkup, I did bring up some concerns to her pediatrician that myself and other family members had noticed. We were noticing that she was having a really hard time with her tummy time. We were noticing that when she was reaching for objects, she was only reaching about midway. She wasn't really grasping. I would have to open her hands in order for her to be able to grasp with her palms. And then lastly, my sister-in-law noticed that she would turn to one side and that her neck seemed a bit stiff. So then when I brought up those concerns to her pediatrician, she took a look at her, and sure enough, she said Alexa had torticollis, and that it was impacting her motor development. And at that time I was 21 years old, had just had my second daughter, and I remember crying in the office. And I think it was because as parents, when we hear a medical diagnosis, we automatically assume the worst. So my brain just started going a mile a minute, just thinking everything and anything that could be going wrong. So her pediatrician said that it would be best to refer her to Birth to 3. She mentioned that it was a home-based program that would help her with her motor skills. They would come to my home, evaluate her, determine if she would be eligible, and then if she would be eligible, they would provide services in my home. So that referral was submitted. And shortly after, someone from Penfield, a service coordinator at Penfield Children's Center, contacted me to schedule that initial visit for them to be able to take a look at Alexa and determine her eligibility for the program.
Wow, that might sounds overwhelming right there in your words. And how was the referral process for you for the program?
It feels like it was so long ago. It was 8 years ago, but I honestly don't feel like it was long. Like I mentioned, she was 3 months old, so she was born in January. It was in April, and by May she was already receiving services. So the turnaround was quickly.
And what was your expectation or your expectations for the program when you were signing up for it? And what were your thoughts as you and your family were getting ready for this program?
So I had no idea what Birth to 3 was. I had never heard of it in the past. At the time, my oldest was 3. Although I had her very young as well. She was very healthy. I had a very healthy pregnancy with my oldest. That I had never needed anything aside from her well child visit. I never needed anything else. So I didn't even know what to expect. I knew that I had a lot of questions. And from the moment, the service coordinator came into my house with the physical therapist, and they explained the process. They were very kind, answered all my questions, and informed me that torticollis is something common in infants, and that sometimes it's if they don't have, so what causes it sometimes is if there's not enough room in the womb, the way they're positioned can then lead to them experiencing the torticollis. So I feel like after I had that initial visit, excuse me, and they were able to answer my questions, I was a little more calm. But you can never help not overthink situations, because then you start therapy and you start thinking, okay, what if she's not able to do this? Or what if she won't be able to reach this milestone? So, but again, the turnaround time was so quickly. They were able to contact me right away, come into my home, complete that evaluation, and begin services all within a month.
That sounds great. And how did your daughter Alexa responded to the program?
So Alexa was a very timid child. I remember they came into the home and right away, you have the therapist who's evaluating her, being very hands-on with her on the floor as I'm going over consent forms and being told more about the program with the service coordinator. Alexa was crying. We kind of had to all get on the floor and I would have to be next to her as I'm answering or consenting or signing to whatever it is the service coordinator has for me, all while the therapist is trying to evaluate her. And it's a very fun way they're incorporating play while evaluating her, but because Alexa was so timid, she was used to just being home with me. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time with me and her older sister, that someone new coming into the home, and right away they're playing with her, and she was crying, so it was difficult.
Now, how was your overall experience, Daisy, with the Birth to Three program?
It was wonderful. I was very grateful to have met such amazing people. First off, I was very grateful that the program was home-based because at the time, again, I was a stay-at-home mom and we had one car. So taking them to doctor's visits would either that would mean my husband would have to find a ride to work and I would keep the car, or I would have to find a ride to their appointments. So realistically speaking, if I would have needed to take her somewhere, yes, I would have made it work, but it would have been difficult. So off the bat, the fact that they came into my home was very helpful. They were great. Her therapist was such an amazing person. I really enjoyed working with her. They were very knowledgeable. And it was amazing. It's something that 8 years later, I still talk about with people about my experience with the Birth to Three program.
And what were some of the major differences before and after the program with Alexa and with your family overall?
So like I mentioned, before the program, she wasn't really reaching, she wasn't grasping. I started noticing that stiffness when I would dress her, when I would sit her up, just any little thing. And as we're starting therapy, as she's getting older, as her skills are emerging, I'm starting to notice like, wow, she can sit independently now. Tummy time isn't so difficult. And I just feel like after we focused on those motor skills that were delayed, once we were at where she needed to be for that, she just had a burst in skills. I could notice how much more confident she was as a child. She started talking because that was another concern closer to her being two. I recall mentioning to her therapist, I feel like she's too quiet. Do you think she's too quiet? I feel like she doesn't talk. And she was very, again, knowledgeable, gave me information regarding communication communication development, I'm sorry, for children. But again, once we targeted what was so impactful with her motor development, I feel like once we were able to get her where she's supposed to be, everything else just kind of came.
Are there some major challenges that you could identify that you went through, and rather some of the biggest rewards that you went through? It seems that you already shared some of those, but maybe revisit some of those.
I think the biggest challenges were the unknown, just not knowing. I remember thinking like, will she be able to sit on her own? Will she be able to walk? I remember that was one of my biggest concerns and worries, and always asking her therapist every week, do you think she'll be able to walk? Do you think? And she would always say, let's focus on right now. Let's focus. So the biggest accomplishment was when she took those first steps a month after her first birthday. That just, because I was so scared for the longest, because as a parent, what do? You Google the symptom or, the diagnoses, and then you go based off the worst case scenario. This could say, oh, children are fine, they grow out of it. But then this can say, a million things that can go wrong, and that's what your brain focuses on. So seeing her walk, take her first steps was the biggest accomplishment for me.
And if I'm hearing you right, it seems that the therapist not only worked with your child, with your daughter, but also worked with you. Like it was a team effort.
It really was. It was such a team effort thing. She would always tell me, okay, here's things that you can incorporate during bath time, during dressing, during diapering. When your family's over and they carry her, ask them to position her in an airplane position, different things that would help with her neck. So it wasn't just therapy every Wednesday at 1, because that's when Alexa had therapy. It was things that I would incorporate in our daily lives with everyone and anyone.
How much work after the therapist left did you have to do on your own? And was it difficult for you, or was just like play therapy with your child?
I think it was just kind of a play therapy thing. I'll be honest, at the beginning, it was very hard remembering after I changed her diaper, Pam suggested I do 5 sit-ups. And I would forget sometimes. And then I would say, okay, let's do 5 sit-ups. That will straighten her core muscles, her belly muscles. And then, so at first it was hard, but then it just kind of became a routine. And it was something that we did without even thinking.
Switching a little bit, how did this life-changing event alter your plans, Daisy?
So at the time, I was planning on going either back to school part-time or going back to work. Again, I was 21 with 2 children under 3, so my plans were shifted from the start. But I was hopeful that I would be able to go back to school when Alexa was a little older. But then when this happened and she needed therapy once a week, I figured I can't go back to school right now. I can't go to work. Yes, it's only once a week, but what if that once a week is the day that school needs me or work needs me? Who's going to help her with this therapy? So having to put my personal things on hold, what I wanted to do, I feel like it impacted in some way. Because again, I had to, and not that I wouldn't do it, I would do it all over again if it meant, for either of my children to be well. But I think that was the biggest thing that I said, okay, this needs to go on the back burner because we need to make sure Alexa gets to where she needs to be.
Absolutely. And I know many moms and fathers, can relate with that as well, with your story. And Daisy, I know that you're working now towards your social work degree.
Yes, I am.
Did this experience influence that decision at all?
It did. From the start, I always knew I wanted to work with children. And I went from, I want to be a teacher to thinking, no, not a teacher, but I still want to work with families, with children. I want to help them. I recall when the service coordinator came into my home, I asked her, I said, so what is it that you do and how, what requirements? So when she told me, oh, I'm a service coordinator, I go into people's homes, I, assist families, children, everything she was telling me, it was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And when she mentioned, you do need a bachelor's in social work. And I thought, this is it. This is my calling. As the years went by, because Alexa was in the program for 2 years, seeing her growth, seeing the amazing relationship, not only she, but I had with her therapist, Pam, I kept thinking like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is where I want to be. So that is what pushed me into going back to school. And I graduated with my associates in human services 2 years ago. And then I am now working towards my bachelor's in social work. And I am now a service coordinator at Penfield Children's Center.
And Daisy, now, how does it feel to be able to offer help to families that are in a similar position to the one you were in not too long ago?
It feels amazing because I feel like I can share my personal experience with them, with anyone, but specifically when I see those young mothers. And I feel like I'm you, I was you. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through. We have so many challenges as a young parent. So I think that being able to not only connect with him as a young parent myself, but then a parent of a child who was in the Birth to 3 program, I think it's such a blessing to be able to connect with families in that level.
Absolutely. I think it's totally relatable, and you can, that empathy is there. You walk in those shoes and you walk that road. Exactly. You know the level of anxiety. You know everything that they're probably going through. You don't have to imagine or think, I think I know. You
Mhm.
exactly know.
Yes.
Um, and now you are the bilingual service coordinator at Penfield Children's Center. Tell us a little bit what you do in your daily day.
So in my daily day, when that initial referral is assigned to the service coordinator, so when a referral is assigned to me, I review that referral and I contact the family and I set up that initial intake appointment where we go over the program, questions, concerns, consent forms, and obtain a brief health history on the child. So I am that primary contact. So just how I have that primary contact come into my home, that's who I am to our families. After that, I discuss this child with our team, where on our team we have a physical therapist, occupational therapist, special education teacher, and a speech language pathologist. We discuss the child, and based on those concerns, priorities, we choose 2 evaluators to complete that evaluation to determine their eligibility. And then from there, services are started. And then my role as service coordinator is to check in either with the family or their primary service provider once a month, just to kind of see how things are going, if there's any concerns. And then every 6 months, we update that child's IFSP, their individual family service plan, because so many things can change, within a month. So in 6 months, children can have an outburst in skills, and we want to make sure we have all that and we know. And so that's ultimately what I do at Penfield Children's Center.
That sounds great. And like you said, it seems like you come full circle again with that. We know we mentioned that before. Are there other resources by having that Birth to Three program through Penfield?
Yes, Penfield offers many amazing resources, one of them being the Cold's Building Blocks website. And on there, parents can find so many informative resources, webinars that they can attend for things like, my child is having a hard time sleeping, or how to teach your child about bullying, or just anything and everything that you can think of. They also have a lot of outreach programs. We provide our families toolkits that Cold donates, and in that toolkit are toys that are beneficial to that child's development, also books, and just any other handout, anything, car seat safety, anything that that family may need is all in that toolkit that is donated by Coles to our families.
Sounds fantastic. And now, why is it important for you, Daisy, to educate about this program and provide this service to families in our community?
I think it's important for our families to know, first off, as a Latina, as a Mexican American, I know how taboo sometimes therapy or services or anything can be, something so small as, oh, my child will talk when they're ready. What we don't realize is maybe there's something there that's impacting that development, not only right now, but down the road when that child's in school. The first 3 years of life are the most important. That's when our child's brain is developing. So I feel it's just in general so important for our families to know that, one, this is a home-based program, like I've mentioned, that is there to help our families, especially those families like myself who did have transportation issues and anything else that may come into play that affects them from receiving any type of service.
Totally agree with you. And our last question for today, Daisy, what can families do if they believe they may need a birth to three services?
So if parents suspect that their child may be experiencing a developmental delay, they can speak to their pediatrician and request that their pediatrician submit a referral, or they themselves can contact Milwaukee County's Birth to Three intake phone number at 414-289-6799 and initiate their own referral.
Thank you so much for sharing your family journey, Daisy, and thank you for the information and the resources for the family in our community. And that brings us to the end of this episode with Daisy Falcon, bilingual service coordinator at Penfield Children's Center, who shared her family experience and their journey with the Birth to Three program. Daisy, thank you again for being here with us today, and thank you for your work in the community.
Thank you, Andrea.
This is Adelante Pronto, a Milwaukee PBS podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. Gracias y hasta la próxima.